So if you look at how absolute power operates in our world, it's almost always about distance, right? And independence.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like think about a billionaire CEO or a head of state. You just don't expect the CEO of some massive multinational corporation to step down from the glass boardroom, walk all the way down to the noisy factory floor, and then, hire a middleman just to help him understand his own employees' daily complaints.
Right. Because the whole point of being at the top of that pyramid is that you just issue a directive
Yeah.
and the machinery obeys.
Exactly. You build those systems specifically to insulate yourself from the noise of the lower level.
Yeah, human power structures are just inherently top-down. I mean, the higher up you go, the less you're expected to negotiate with the frailties of the people at the bottom.
But then, and this is what we're doing today on this deep dive, you open up these ancient biblical texts.
Mhm.
We're specifically looking at a stack of sources from the Catholic public domain version of the sacred Bible today, ranging from uh, the ancient history of Exodus all the way through the epistles, Romans, Hebrews, James, First Timothy, the Gospels.
It's a really wide array of texts.
It is. And that entire top-down power dynamic we just talked about, it is completely inverted in these sources.
Totally upside down.
Yeah. We're exploring the concept of intercession today, and the divine landscape here is shockingly, almost uncomfortably collaborative.
It is a massive paradox, to be honest. I mean, the sources present this creator who is entirely self-sufficient, right? He formed the universe. He knows absolutely everything.
Right.
And yet, he actively establishes this incredibly elaborate bureaucracy
Yeah.
of middlemen. He sets up mediators and advocates to bridge the gap between human weakness and divine perfection.
And I gotta say, I genuinely struggle with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I'm an all-powerful CEO, I don't set up a liaison committee. I just fix the factory floor myself.
Yeah.
So why this elaborate setup of mediators? Like, why doesn't the creator just wave a hand and resolve human suffering from a comfortable distance?
Well, to understand the why of the mediator, you really have to look at how these texts diagnose the human condition.
Okay.
They don't just view humanity as morally flawed, they view us as fundamentally limited by our very composition.
Our composition, meaning what we're made of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Psalm 102 lays it out super starkly. The writer actually says God is compassionate, specifically because, quote, he knows our form. He has called to mind that we are dust.
Wow. Dust.
Yeah.
That is not exactly a glowing performance review.
No, it's not.
It implies this profound structural fragility. Like, you can't ask dust to hold up a skyscraper.
Right. It's a completely diagnostic assessment. The creator understands the absolute material constraint of his own creation. And Paul actually takes this a step further in his letter to the Romans.
Okay, in what way?
Well, in chapter 8, he moves from physical fragility to cognitive fragility. He states flat out, we do not know how to pray as we ought.
Oh, wow. So we aren't just lacking the physical strength to fix our problems. We are literally too writ or too blind to even articulate what the solution should be.
Precisely.
Like, when disaster strikes, I might pray for, I don't know, a specific job or for a specific person to change because I think that will magically fix my life. But my perspective is so limited, I might be asking for the absolute wrong thing.
Yeah, we just lack the temporal and spiritual data to formulate the right request.
Right.
And the historical precedent for how the divine responds to this whole dust-like nature is mapped out beautifully in Exodus chapter 4.
Oh, this is the Moses story, right?
Yeah, God tasks Moses with confronting Pharaoh to free the Israelites.
And Moses essentially tries to hand in his resignation before his first day on the job.
He totally does.
He claims an impediment and slowness of tongue. He's just terrified.
He is, and God initially pushes back, pointing out that he is the creator who literally made the mouth of man. But notice the resolution here. God doesn't just rewire Moses' brain to make him a master orator on the spot. Instead, understanding Moses' limitation, God provides Aaron, Moses' brother.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he says Aaron will speak for you to the people, and he will be your mouth. So Aaron becomes a literal intercessor.
It reminds me of an analogy.
Okay, sir.
It's like watching a parent with a toddler who's trying to carry a box that is just way, way too heavy for them.
Right.
The parent doesn't just sit there and watch them struggle, right? And they don't demand that the toddler magically get stronger instantly.
No, of course not.
The parent bends down and carries the weight with them. And that's what's happening here. By providing Aaron, God's intercession is this structural response to our dust-like nature.
That's a great way to put it.
But wait, if we follow that logic, sending human helpers like Aaron, it really only solves the immediate local logistical problem.
Right.
Like it gets the words out to Pharaoh, but
Yes.
it doesn't solve the eternal gap between humanity and the divine.
And that is exactly why the texts claim that the Creator eventually steps into the gap himself.
Okay, let's get into that.
So, 1 Timothy chapter 2 establishes a very clear cosmic hierarchy. It says, "For there is one God and one mediator of God and of men, the man Christ Jesus."
Okay, wait, let's unpack this for a second.
Sure.
Because the book of Hebrews uses a very specific word for this dynamic. In Hebrews 2, it says it was fitting for Jesus to be made similar to his brothers in all things.
Right, fitting.
But fitting feels like a really loaded word. Like, why wouldn't a distant, majestic decree from heaven be fitting? If I'm drowning, I don't necessarily need the lifeguard to become a weaker swimmer, you know?
Yeah.
I just need him to pull me out of the water.
Well, that's because you're thinking of it purely as a rescue from an external physical threat.
Okay.
But Hebrews describes the core human threat as an internal spiritual bondage. The text argues that because human children share common flesh and blood, the mediator had to share in that exact same material.
So he had to become the dust.
Exactly. He had to become the dust. And the state and purpose is crucial. The text says it was so that through death, he might destroy the devil and free those who have been condemned to servitude by the fear of death.
Wait, pause. I need to understand the mechanics of this. How does having a physical, killable body actually defeat the devil? What is the actual mechanism there?
So in the ancient worldview of these texts, death wasn't just a biological end. It was viewed as this master-slave dynamic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the devil held the power of death, and he used the terror of it to keep humanity enslaved to self-preservation and sin.
Oh, I see.
So if a purely divine, immortal being simply outlaws death from heaven, it's just a legal fiction. It doesn't change the reality on the ground for the slaves. To break a master's hold over a slave, the liberator has to actually enter the slave market, assume the condition of the slave, and dismantle the system from the inside out.
Wow.
By taking on flesh and entering death as a human, the mediator breaks the monopoly on death from within the system.
That fundamentally changes the definition of mediation. Like, it's not just passing messages back and forth like some political ambassador. It's an infiltration.
Yes, an infiltration. And that infiltration is exactly what qualifies him for the ultimate role of high priest.
Okay.
Hebrews 4.15 is the hinge of this entire theological argument. It says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to have compassion on our infirmities, but rather one who was tempted in all things, just as we are, yet without sin."
We should probably make sure we're clear on what a high priest actually is in this context.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because if you're listening and you're picturing like a guy in nice robes leading a weekly church service, that is way too casual for what this meant.
Oh, way too casual.
In ancient Israel, the high priest was the one person on exactly one day a year who was allowed to step into the inner sanctum of the temple to speak to God on behalf of the entire nation. It was an incredibly dangerous, exclusive, high-stakes job. You were stepping into the unshielded presence of the Creator. If the high priest did it wrong, the theological implication was literally fatal.
Right, it was the ultimate bottleneck of intercession.
Yeah.
The entire fate of the nation rested on one fragile human representative. But Hebrews is taking that terrifying, exclusive, ancient concept and completely rewriting it.
Because this new high priest is different.
Exactly. Because this specific high priest understands human infirmity from the inside. Because he actually experienced the temptation, the physical exhaustion, the dust. The text says we can now approach the throne of grace with confidence to obtain mercy.
A throne of grace instead of a throne of judgment.
Right. And Hebrews 7 adds this mind-bending temporal dimension to it, too.
What do you mean?
Well, this isn't just a one-off historical event that happened on a cross 2,000 years ago and then ended. Because Jesus continues forever, the text says, quote, "He is ever alive to make intercession on our behalf."
Okay, so that handles the external problem, right? Jesus is pleading our case in the heavenly sanctum, acting as the perfect high priest.
Right.
But what happens to the internal problem we diagnosed earlier? Because, going back to Romans 8, our minds are still dust. We still don't know what to pray for. So how do the sources resolve that psychological gap?
Well, the New Testament sources actually describe a dual-front intercession.
Dual front.
Yeah.
Okay.
While you have the external mediation happening in heaven, you have an internal rescue operation happening simultaneously.
Oh, okay.
So going back to Romans 8:26, it directly addresses that psychological gap.
Hmm.
Paul writes that since we don't know how to pray, the Spirit helps our weakness by asking on our behalf with ineffable sighing, which is often translated as groans too deep for words.
Groans too deep for words.
Yeah. And the one who examines hearts, meaning God the Father, knows exactly what the Spirit seeks.
I love that concept of ineffable sighing. It's so visceral.
It really is.
Like if you've ever been so overwhelmed by grief or just the crushing weight of daily survival that you physically have no coherent words left, you know? You just sit on the edge of your bed and sigh.
Mhm.
It's the absolute limit of human capacity, the total breakdown of language.
It is the moment when the dust settles and you realize you have absolutely nothing left to offer.
Yeah. And to me, what the Spirit is doing here is acting almost like a master acoustic engineer.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Imagine you have this severely degraded, distorted audio file, right? And that file is our raw, exhausted human grief. We don't even know what we're asking for.
Right, it's just noise.
Exactly. The acoustic engineer takes that staticky noise, runs it through a sophisticated filter, isolates the underlying pure frequency of what we actually need, and plays that perfect, clear sound back to the creator.
That's a brilliant way to picture it.
The Spirit translates the raw data of our pain into the exact petition we didn't know how to formulate. It's the ultimate universal translator. It is God interceding to God on behalf of us from within us.
And that internal advocacy is explicitly promised in the Gospel of John as well.
Oh, really? Where?
In John chapter 14, Jesus is preparing to face his crucifixion, and his followers are understandably terrified. I mean, they're about to be left alone to face the Roman Empire and the religious authorities.
They're panicked.
Right. And he promises them, I will not leave you orphans. He tells them he will ask the Father to give them another advocate, the Spirit of truth, to abide with them forever.
The fact that he says another advocate implies Jesus is the first and the Spirit is the second.
Exactly. And we really should look at what that word advocate actually meant to a first-century reader.
Okay, what did it mean?
Well, in the original Greek, the word is paraclete. And in the Greco-Roman legal system, a paraclete wasn't just a defense attorney who spoke for you from across the room.
Like we'd picture today.
Right. A paraclete was typically a person of immense social standing and power who physically came and stood right beside you in the courtroom. Their mere presence at your side transferred their status and credibility onto you, shielding you from the judge's wrath.
Wow. So if you're listening to this and thinking, well, this just sounds like some ancient legal loophole, you have to look closely at what the text is actually doing here.
Yeah.
It's taking the fragile human mind and surrounding it with this overwhelming network of high-status legal defense. You have Jesus as the high priest advocating in the heavenly court, and the Spirit standing right beside you, filtering your internal collapse.
You are entirely bracketed by divine empathy.
Bracketed by empathy. I love that.
It's an airtight system of mercy designed specifically to counter human frailty.
But, and here's where the sources throw a massive curveball.
They sure do.
If you are completely surrounded by this divine safety net, the natural human instinct is to just kick back and enjoy the protection, right?
Oh, absolutely. Just relax.
Yeah. But the texts aggressively pivot here because they use this massive divine intercession to mandate exactly how we're supposed to treat each other.
The logic of the New Testament is straightforward here. Because you are profoundly interceded for, you are commanded to intercede for others.
Right.
It's a trickle-down effect.
Right.
1 Timothy chapter 2 makes this an explicit, non-negotiable directive. The author urges that supplications, prayers, petitions, and thanksgivings be made for all men.
Okay, supplications being like formal, urgent requests for help.
Yes.
But all men is a dangerously broad category.
Well, it gets incredibly specific and highly challenging. The text actually commands these prayers for kings and for all who are in high places so that the community might lead a quiet and tranquil life.
Okay, we have to pause and look at the political reality of when this was written.
Oh, definitely.
Because this isn't a cozy modern democracy. These texts were written under the Roman Empire, often during periods when the very leaders they are being told to pray for, like, Nero or Domitian, were actively hunting and executing them.
Right, the stakes were life and death.
The ancient concept of patronage was all about scratching the back of the powerful guy who pays you. You flatter the emperor to get ahead. But this text completely subverts that. It demands you intercede for the emperor who might literally throw you to the lions tomorrow.
It severs intercession from political agreement. It doesn't ask the early Christians to endorse the Roman emperor's policies. It demands they advocate for their leaders' ultimate alignment with the divine for the sake of societal peace.
So if you're listening and you lean hard left or hard right today, this ancient text is staring you right in the face, completely impartial.
Yeah.
It forces you to advocate for the leaders you vehemently disagree with.
Because if the ultimate authority of the universe operates through empathy and mediation rather than immediate destruction, then demanding the destruction of your political enemies is fundamentally incompatible with the reality these texts describe.
It democratizes the intercession. It forces you to look at your worst enemy and realize they are made of the exact same dust you are.
Exactly. And James chapter 5 applies this web of mercy down to the local community level, too.
How so?
It gives highly practical instructions. It says if anyone is ill, the priests or elders of the church should be brought in to pray over them and anoint them. James emphasizes the sheer power of this communal safety net.
Right.
He states that the unremitting prayer of a just person prevails over many things. And then he points to the ancient prophet Elijah, noting specifically that Elijah was a mortal man like us.
Again, acknowledging the dust, reminding the reader that Elijah wasn't some untouchable demigod.
Yes. Yet Elijah prayed, and the texts record that he altered the weather patterns, stopping the rain for 3.5 years.
Wow.
The implication is that human intercession is a potent, active force within this divine ecosystem. It isn't just a polite gesture. It actually moves the needle of reality.
But the absolute blueprint for how we are supposed to intercede for each other is laid out by Jesus himself, right? In John chapter 7, too.
Yes, in what is known as the high priestly prayer.
Which is his final major act before being arrested and crucified.
And the content of that prayer is crucial. He models this human-to-divine intercession perfectly. He does not pray for God to magically airlift his friends out of the Roman Empire.
Right. He doesn't say, just take them away from all this.
No. He explicitly states, I am not praying that you would take them out of the world. Instead, he intercedes, asking the Father to preserve them from evil and to unify them. He says, so that they may be one, even as we are one.
So he doesn't ask for the struggle to end. He asks for them to be protected and united within the friction of the real world.
It is the ultimate model of bridging the gap.
When you synthesize all these sources together, the picture that emerges is just radical.
It really is.
We started this deep dive by asking why an all-powerful CEO would need middlemen. And the answer these texts provide is that God doesn't need them. He deploys them because he intimately understands our absolute limitations as our creator. He doesn't despise the fact that we are dust. From Aaron becoming a physical mouthpiece for a terrified Moses, to the Creator taking on human flesh to break the monopoly of death from the inside out, to the Spirit acting as the ultimate acoustic engineer for our silent, exhausted grief.
Yeah.
Or finally, to the command that we intercede for our worst political enemies. It is an unrelenting demonstration of God's love and unending help.
It completely reframes how we view authority. True power, according to these sources, isn't isolation or independence. True power is the capacity for infinite empathy.
Wow.
And there's one final detail in that John 17 prayer that perfectly encapsulates this, something I think the listener really needs to mull over.
Oh, let's hear.
So Jesus is praying for his immediate disciples, advocating for them just hours before his execution, right?
Yeah.
But in verse 20, the scope of his intercession suddenly expands dramatically.
Okay.
It says, but I'm not praying for them only, but also for those who, through their word, shall believe in me.
Oh, man. If you are listening to this right now, think about the sheer scale of that statement.
It's staggering.
According to these ancient texts, thousands of years before you were even born, before you made your first mistake, before you felt your first moment of overwhelming exhaustion, the ultimate intercessor was already factoring you into his prayer.
You were already embedded in the defense strategy.
You have literally never existed without an advocate standing beside you.
Never.
You are fully known, you are made of dust, and yet you are profoundly defended. That is a completely different way to look at the universe and your place in it. We're going to leave you with that to mull over today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.